So make sure that there's nothing missing. So make sure that all the steps, that there's nothing missing, using that as my guide and then adjusting it as necessary.
I wanted to look at that. You don't have it with you by any chance, or should I pull it up from the Google? Can you pull that up, please? I'm going to record this because it's part of your training, and then you don't have to be like on all the rest of the 2 hours.
Okay.
You could just want to kind of run this report and I'll record it. And then, you know, I know that, like you said, you were there at the coffee shop. Well, yeah. Like Starbucks, all this.
So which one? You talked about the cataloging manual?
Yes.
Okay.
You did 3. I saw 3 reports.
Yeah, there's a cataloging manual, the collection policy, and then there's the digital preservation plan. And then there's the emergency response plan.
Okay.
They all kind of link and work together. Let me share my screen. And I almost kind of feel like the collection policy in and of itself is almost like multiple plans in one, or like multiple policies in one. And I was considering separating them, like keeping the collection policy together as one, but then also saving the different portions as separate guides or separate policies in case portions needed to be shared with certain people, but maybe they didn't want to read the whole thing or look for it. So I'm thinking about doing that as well, just to make it a little bit more of a friendly read to read through.
But as far as the tendency are concerned,
my family,
you think that, or they think that it's small, like you know,
okay, so this is the collection cataloging manual. And essentially it just goes through the process of the cataloging workflow. This is just kind of a suggested way of doing it. So I have the cataloging procedures, which is kind of like an overview of cataloging, provenance recording, conditioning. So basically kind of just going from step 1 is we have an item that's donated. Where did we get it? What is the condition of it? Who have been the previous owners of it? Do we have a deed of gift on record? Are there any type of stipulations in terms of rights and access, sharing it with the public or anything like that? So it's kind of just an overview of that first portion. And then it goes into the specific workflow, starting with gathering your supplies that you need. Like say, for example, I have a physical object, I have a mask with me, and I'm going to be taking inventory of it along with the rest of the collection, making sure that you have all the supplies you need, entering it into Airtable is a spreadsheet.
It sounds like you're like underwater. Is that your headset?
Yeah, it could be my headphones. That better?
You want to enlarge your screen some?
Okay. So that's pretty much what step 1 is, creating your assessment number. And then I wrote the guide with the intention that it can be used for the docent or the volunteers as well, if we're teaching them how to scan and how to digitize and how to do collection management. And maybe they're not familiar with what an accession number is or where these numbers come from. So I try to be as detailed as possible. So it also has a section on how to create an accession number, going through the process of labeling and accessioning, cataloging, getting all of the details, descriptions, dimensions, etc., and putting them in Airtable. So this is kind of the prototype that I developed in Airtable of what that can look like. Entering this math into the system, getting the description, uploading a photo of the file, and all of those details. And then I have guided directions on how to download that file and then importing it into Omeka, which will be the cataloging management system that we use that will be public facing for people to use for their research, and to get more information about the items that are in the museum. So then it just goes into detail of creating that metadata, which will be used for search. So it's very important that those are as detailed as possible. And then digitizing things. So using either a digital scanner or a DSLR camera. So I have both. Depending on the item I'm digitizing, I prefer to use the scanner. It's like a tabletop scanner, but it faces down and you can lift it up or down. You can even digitize three-dimensional objects like maps, but I like to use that for printed objects. And then use my camera for three-dimensional objects like things like that, baskets. So it goes into detail of how to do that, how to carry your workspace, the preferred type of settings on your camera using a tripod, things like that, to make sure that volunteers know how to do it, naming your files. It goes into detail about the types of files that are best suited for archival purposes, files that are high quality but not too large in space to take up a bunch of space. But also, I have suggested a portable hard drive to keep the original files. So those will be files that are not compressed, which will be the best, high quality that we have, and that will provide an opportunity to have a backup of everything. So we're not depending on the cloud. It's not, people think digitizing means preservation, and digital is not a forever thing. Servers crash, things get hacked. So it's always good to have a backup of everything. So then it goes into uploading those files into Omeka. And then I have step-by-step directions on how to do that using the CSV file, how to make sure that you have the settings specific to map your spreadsheet so that they match. I have a sample spreadsheet that I've made using the Airtable so that people don't have to figure it out. It's already done, it's already made to match what Omeka is expecting. And then just going through the steps to show you how that's done. And then these are those metadata that Omeka is looking for. And then this goes into organizing the files on that portable hard drive, the backup copies. So making sure that they're easy to find in the folder structure. So photos, documents, videos, and audios are in a hierarchical organization. So you'll have a main audio folder, and then maybe tours and productions and oral histories will have their own separate folders. And it goes into examples of how to name files and things like that. Just for metadata purposes, making it easy to search and organizing your digital assets. Very detailed. And then this is just an overview of Omeka, the features that it offers for people who are not familiar with Omeka, what it does, why it was selected as our collection management system, the administrative tools that Omeka offers. So like, you can have multiple users. I can add new alpha or anyone else on the team. They can go in and they can manage it. They can see what's done on the back end. You can offer guest access. Maybe you have a researcher or a fellow who's doing research on West African art, and you give them access to view and maybe to see specific things, but they don't have administrative access. So Omeka offers that. And so I just go into detail about how to do that, how to manage Omeka, how to configure the settings that I currently have in place already, setting the search functions, all those details, the item type and elements. All this is just administrative in terms of managing Omeka, what it currently looks like now, how to go in and change that appearance. If you want to change the theme of it, what the theme is set at now. So yeah, all this is just administrative stuff, the plugins that can add more features and heighten the user's experience of Omeka. So for example, the plugin that I have turned on is the ability to import in from Airtable, the ability to create an exhibit. And I also have turned on the Library of Congress authorities and vocabulary to assist with making sure that what we're developing in our collection system in terms of vocabulary and search matches the Library of Congress has for people that are familiar with it. And so they're going to be looking for those terms that they're familiar with. And then it just goes into detail of how to actually manually add items to Omeka if you're not using a spreadsheet, how to create the items, how to create collections, how to create exhibits. So that's what I was saying is this might need to be a separate guide that's just Omeka only. Kind of like this is teaches you how to make the exhibit, how to add pages to your exhibit. That part can be a little bit tricky. So I made sure it's like screenshots and go into everything. And then finally, just quality assurance. Is as this process goes through, people are going to make mistakes, so there needs to be quality assurance going and checking as you're going through it, and then also just doing a run through and making sure that there's no errors, and how to do that. And then finally, I have remote work guidelines. Because I know a lot of us who work remotely, so I was thinking conceptually, how can it work for someone like myself to do the collection management, maybe doing the quality assurance, checking on the metadata, while having others that are possibly digitizing and scanning and handling the objects physically. This just goes into an overview, kind of keeping good communication, things like that. Data security, making sure that people are using two-factor authentication for accessing anything remotely, making sure that people are only, given access to what they should have access to. Highlighting the importance of the roles of volunteers and interns and how they can help with digitizing and cataloging, what they'll benefit from that, what they'll be learning about it. And how they can assist in the community by doing that type of work. And then there's finally just the glossary of terms that people may not be familiar with. So that was the collection management guide, which is the things that I am going to be working on next. Basically going there and starting to take inventory and digitizing things, putting them into Airtable. And then once that's done, I will then work remotely doing the Omeka stuff and things like that. So I can't figure it out.
I said that's a lot of work. Great job in that presentation. So
that is making strategic plans and creating tutorials and teaching kind of like the process of things.
So you're gonna when you start the tutorials. So I guess you and
maybe videos would be helpful as well to add to those. I don't know if you guys use those other than just the screenshot.
I didn't hear you.
I was wondering if you think videos would also be helpful instead of just screenshots, but like showing people step by step.
I think that's going to be a lot better. I'm glad you said that, because those little small webinars, incrementally, where you're actually talking about those sections, that's preferred because no one's going to read, I mean, really, that's what archivists do. That's what researchers do. We do the ticking like that. But when you're asking the interns to come in and tick that way, it is better that they are hearing and listening, and they have that other tool. And also we need to make this accessible, ADA accessible. And I think that with subtitles and, and presenting it with subtitles, we're gonna meet that goal. Yeah, make sure we do that. Because we tell IMLS, we also tell the state, California Arts Council, that that's what we're doing. And even here for Popular Research Station, I usually have that little closed caption, but sometimes it blocks the view. But I got to get more in a habit of placing this somewhere where it doesn't create that black box while we're talking. But,
And everybody has different learning styles. So I'm a visual learner and a hands-on learner. So I have to have pictures, but video is even more detailed and helpful because I may read something and understand it differently than what it actually is. So to actually see it being done and a very hands-on approach is always helpful for people, especially
Okay.
at state of.
Right. I like that. So I want to look at how we connect. I know you mentioned the Library of Congress, but you're going to go to them to see what their standards are. We've always talked about here at Public Research Station, even in the beginning, how we're going to connect the data that that over the decade or more that we've done in this field, and how we connect it with the Library of Congress, right? I know the Phantom Gallery Chicago network is already connected through another program, and archived at our website, basically our blog site is at the Library of Congress, right? And so eventually the Sojourner Truth Museum has to have that collection based at either the state, well, local, Sacramento. That's why I wanted you to go over to and talk with the archivist, at the public library, to see how we can get this collection and all the work that you're doing to be centralized and connected to the rest of the city. And then they, in turn, they're connected to the state, and then of course the national database, right? So while you're shaping this and getting ready to do it, the part that's essential is that, but also how we can't just leave it sitting at Sojo, and in the data files, we have to connect it to the state. We got we were one of the first funders throughout, like it was over 300 throughout the state of California that was funded through the it's the California Endowment, and Resources. And they had for like, I guess, 10 years been collecting this money and this endowment. So this was the first year that they were able to award, organizations and museums throughout the state. So Sojourner Truth got one of the awards. And so, yeah, we've already been connected to the city with Sacramento Association of Museums, but the bigger picture, of course, is the state. And then, like I said, we're one of the awardees with the state, and with IMLS, we're federal. So it's really important that we're taking these pieces and connecting them and making sure we're bridging them and placing all the work that you're doing so it rests in the state archive, and we're plugged into the national.
Sure that I'll try and reach back out next week. I have not had any luck reaching them. I also have a contact, Kim Hayden. She is the lead curator at the Sacramento History Archives. Actually did an interview with her a couple of times, and I took a tour of the archives there. And I haven't been able to get hold of her either. So I will try and get back to them, try and meet with them face to face. And like you said, I might just have to show up and be like, hey, and do that this upcoming week. So.
Right, and you could also look at, maybe I can do the same thing, and look at when the like I'm gonna Google it, is when they are open to the public or when they have workshops in there, let's see here.
The only other archivist that I know is out of Virginia, so she's not even like, I mean, she could give me a suggestion, but she's not in California, so I would prefer someone who's in Sacramento that knows. There's also Kamala Pose. She is the library director at Second City. She may know someone. She's my old professor, so I can also ask her. So I have a couple of contacts that I can.
It's really a bad connection to what's going on there, and that's really. You have a lot of information that you're sharing with us, but it sounds like you're in underwater with competing with the people in the background there. It's it's kind of hello?
Yeah, I was gonna type it in the chat.
Yeah, that would be great. If you could share that. I'm just looking for this is down on J Street. There's a lot going on right now in their archives. So that's the Sacramento room you were talking about? Okay, here it is. I know they recently got like a 50,000 grant to gather these stories of African American, stories there in Sacramento. Yeah, so we're not
By the way, when I'm looking at what your mayor is doing, I'm just as excited as the day he got elected. Remember how excited I was?
Brandon, Mayor
Yeah.
Brandon.
Yeah. And a lot of the stuff he's doing is exactly great. I mean, I don't follow him totally, but I think I am curious how he is, because he literally is the most progressive mayor anywhere. So
Well, there's a lot of chatter, so just so that we can move forward on the next conversation. Thank you, Aisha, for
yeah, we don't have
sharing.
to stop. I just
No, we're gonna
thinking
move into
about
the
it.
next, we've had her for half an hour and she's sitting there at Starbucks.
Oh, but I do want, can
And
I
it's
give
kind
her
of-
some feedback before we move on?
Sure.
Okay, so we talked the AI experiences that I've had, especially because certain segments of the population are more interested than others, or not the AI, but the virtual reality events that people have in the various ways. The thing that I noticed that I would love to see more of, and again, I haven't been to enough, just here and there, is if there were ways for the host to have the individuals coming interact more, like if they're buddied systems or if there's stations where where it is known that you are by yourself and you don't know anyone and you can meet someone. And so there's a more of a gathering and a community sense for people who are less comfortable with the technology, or just looking to have that social aspect. Oftentimes there were meetings where people said, oh, go socially network now. And then the people who knew each other went together, and then the people who didn't know anybody were just like floating around going, can I interrupt? Do I not? So if there were more active ways to engage people who come, I think the people who have experienced those things, who do not have a built-in friendship group at the event or something like that, they kind of get lost in the shuffle, and then they don't like the experience because they're like, somebody would notice I'm standing here by myself in a person, but that's not the case online. And so I think any host has to actively be a host in the same way you would be in person, making sure people aren't isolated. And so that was something that I advised a friend of mine. She actually, she is creates content, and what is she called? She writes a lot of copy and also does a lot of content for online. And she now works for a huge company, but her side project was putting together these events. She did one for her sister's comic book company. And, it just had those elements were missing, even though I advised on that, so I think people always forget that. And then there's a failure because that isn't occurring. And so I just wanted to say that to you, just as, maybe it's helpful, maybe it's not. But I think also, like, even if you have a tour, that's like an audio tour that you can time on your own, like when you show up to each piece and it's on a tour. Maybe if there was a buddy system or a group system where 3 or 4 people did the tour together, and that there's a way to program that into it, like you just show up in this area and people go, and then they can talk amongst themselves in that group, if that's even possible. I don't know, but I just think it being more interactive, so you not only get to experience the museum, you get to experience an exhibition, but you also get that social high that people get, why they go to art openings and things like that, to run into people, to have new conversations, to have unexpected conversations, really needs to be a part of that dynamic. And so I just thought you probably already considered that, but that's just my 2 cents without knowing anybody even wants it.
No, yeah, those are definitely conversations that I have with the groups that I'm working with. So I shared in the chat October 4th, I believe it is, maybe October 3rd. I'll be speaking at the Banned and Controversial event that SJSU is having, and I'm going to be sharing the VR room that I created. My topic is reparations for my controversial topic. It's surrounding the 272 Georgetown sale book. As well as the Copper Sun book. So I'll be talking a little bit about browser-based VR, the process that I went through in creating that space. And that is one of the things that we were talking about during our meeting, is how to guide people through spaces like this, and what are we going to do in terms of hosting. And we've mentioned those very topics that you brought up. And I think it really comes down to who is hosting and who's having these events. So we're educators, we're researchers, and we're kind of more aware of and making intention when it comes to accessibility and making things more diverse for people and inclusive for people with various needs, or familiar with not, and everyone doesn't consider that. I actually just got pulled into a group to create a project specifically for the campus, doing the library and technology lab. So I'm actually creating a space specifically for that, hosting events, educating people on VR and technology, whether it's drones or robots or augmented reality or VR. So we're actually creating a space to host educational events, whether it's for the public or for other organizations, museums, different partners, educators. So actually, that's my end of the semester project that I'm working on now.
Well,
I just registered. I just registered for it, so it's on the 4th, tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. All right, I put in the chat the something I was going to talk about after Liza and I talk about what's happening here in Chicago with storefronts under the leadership of our new mayor. But is in terms of philanthropic. And there's few people of color lead in art museums. Can philanthropy change that? So that was an article I was kind of gonna go into and kind of talk about, but you can look at that at your leisure. And I'm excited. I registered for your workshop, or your presentation. So I don't think I have anything to do that crosses over that, but I put it on my calendar to do. I'm going to go over to Minneapolis, and I just got a text message from a friend of mine that's over there that visited the George Floyd memorial that has been erected as a placemaking, where the store that he was, he was murdered in front of, has taken that whole corner and transformed it into a basically use placemaking and placekeeping to erect a memorial. And it's kind of interesting, so I'm going to go over on the ground and kind of take some photographs and explore that. Also be at the Walker Art Center, and looking at their current exhibitions, and then looking at the work of Diane McIntyre from New York and her dance company, presenting, a live, is in the same tongue is what it's almost being presented as a repertoire of all of her work and her life story, with dancers and live musicians on stage. And this is their premiere of that. And they're going to go out on tour with it, but this is the premiere that's happening in Minneapolis. So I'll be joining that this weekend, and I guess I'll see you next Tuesday, and then get in touch with Shona for sure, so she can see you, and connect you with Ms. Sarah. Really great job. I'm looking forward to your full presentation so that we don't have distractions in the background while you're presenting. But yeah, you've compiled a lot of work, and now we're gonna have to break it down in more bite-sized pieces.
Yeah, that's always a much better predicament to be in, to have a lot to choose from and to have a wealth of choices. So that's fantastic.
Right. So I know there's a
I want to make sure I put in the good quality work. I feel like you guys invested in me, so I owe it that much to put in everything that I've learned so far. It's good. It's win-win for everybody.
okay, great. So we're gonna share the screen with, I just listened to this this morning, and it was a kind of basically a brief presentation on on storefronts. And so Liza, you said you listened to it for a bit?
Yeah, I listened to, I'd have to look. I listened to the part where they were just talking about who can apply and what the qualifications are. Did you go to the whole thing?
Yeah, I went to the whole thing, and
So how are they setting up the funding? Like, who gets the funding and who finds the properties?
that's interesting, and a good question. I'm trying to get rid of this. Well, I'll leave it there, our closed captioning box. But this funding is for organizations, and it also is for individual business owners that are doing pop-ups in non-traditional, spaces. But the money is not for the business owner, but the person that wants to do the pop-up store. It covers rent, it covers
Okay, so they could just rent a space.
and utilities, marketing, you can rent furniture, you can paint, it pays for cleaning. It also is money in there. Like, they ask for 25% of the money for the event manager and 30% staffing, to organize the events that are happening in those storefronts. This has to happen, of course, in the business district. And for me, what that means is 47th Street here is a business corridor, and I'm going to circle back and work with my realtor, Lauren Laurie of FM Commercial, and she has some properties that are empty storefronts along the corridor. This program is for like 2 to 12 months activations that they're looking at. What else? They want you to, you can apply between $30,000 and $200,000 per corridor. And it's really good to probably work with, for us, it would be QCDC with Quad City Community Development Corporation. I know the director over there, Rhonda McFarland, and see if they are applying. And then have a conversation about maybe tagging that. Because remember, I had the conversation with, I don't know if I want to do pop-ups. But one of our artists here, Bruce Cage, has a pop-up store on the first floor that's like 10,000 square feet down there. And he also has the museum of he has a collection down there for the Negro Baseball League, and he has a lot of apparel from the Negro Baseball League down there. And so, I'm going to have a conversation with him, because I invited him to look at this, and he's already occupying an empty storefront. The empty storefronts have to be like ready, to go in. They can't be a build out or anything like that. Let's see. It went really fast. I think it was really straightforward. Stuff that I've already heard, and and I think it's a really good opportunity and good program for, they're targeting folks that were hurt, of course, during the pandemic, you know,
They're
and
yeah,
then-
they're looking for people who have experience, who could really make it work, who were
Yes.
hit hard.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not just, and you have to kind of like prove that you have done this work. And it's part of the economic recovery. And so, yeah, it's really pretty straightforward. And I think the one clause in there is they're looking for, again, here it is in the narrative, to build relationships with potential tenants to kind of place people in these pop-up spaces, you know, businesses. So I want to see what that looks like in terms of the arts being in that building, because we have like pop-up, you know, containers that are like, you know, cat a corner our building that's empty, that I have looked at to think about doing something tactical in that space, with video, and sound projection. And I know a couple of artists that were looking for a space, so that if I had this conversation, it would be with the QCDC, and talk to them about what they're looking at for this corridor as terms of business. And it's kind of like one of those things. Last summer, I invested in, because no one reimbursed me, for doing 4 totem poles down the 47th Street at King Drive. And they were basically, they're murals that are down there, and Phantom Gallery kind of came out of pocket, put a project manager down there and an artist to put people to work. And we weren't reimbursed that money, but we did want to take care of it. And so I do have a relationship with them, and I'm going to talk to them about this program. Look at what the realtor that has some properties that they want to get people in, and they've been empty for a while on this business corridor, and then just go for it. It's due on the 13th, so I do have time to kind of make the phone calls and see who, if I went for it under the Phantom Gallery, would be interested.
Okie doke.
Yeah, so I think last year we missed this deadline, but it is a program that the city of Chicago and you know, Department of Business Affairs, it's a project that they do have. They also, the marketing and also the signage they work with you on. So you create, you know, and they take you through a lot of professional development so that you can learn, not that we don't know, but in terms of new people coming in, starting these pop-up businesses, and, you know, basically how to run a business, how to activate this kind of space, you know, as a small business, you know, so they have all that kind of like opportunities for artists. I'm looking at artists as people doing business, you know, with the city. So.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in that. And, yeah,
Mm.
I missed it last year, and in a couple of proposals that I did with the Department of Cultural Affairs, I mentioned in my narrative that I wanted to get some of these spaces through this program, and I've got the projectors and everything. I just bought another projector, so that I can have something that's like a time-based sound projection, where my short experimental film, you know, is timed to come on at certain times of the night. And this exhibit, or actually projections, tactical urbanism and the horizontal landscape, projects every half an hour randomly, or we set on a timer. And then I have a speaker so that the music also plays. And I proposed it for our empty space downstairs, and I'll meet with Bruce to see when I can activate